Hi, everybody. My name is Jared Milrad. I'm the founder of Movikarma. We're the nonprofit organization that created our podcast, Rewriting Hollywood, here, which focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, as well as representation in the entertainment industry. I've been really honored and lucky to have some incredible guests on the podcast lately, doing some extraordinary work and really opening up about their own journeys in the industry and beyond. Today is no exception. We have Pej Vahdat, who is the star of the several projects, but one of them that you may have seen called The Old Man, which is now streaming on Hulu. I had a chance to check it out. Also stars Jeff Bridges. It tells the story of Dan Chase, who absconded from the CIA decades ago and has been living off the grid since, and is now essentially on the run. You may know Pej from several projects over the years. Bones, which was up from 2009 to 2017. He's also appeared in Empire, the CW's Arrow. He played Cash in the first season of Showtime, the Showtime series Shameless. It has 3 series, I believe, kind of in the works at various stages. A reboot of Dynasty on the CW, The Old Man, which I mentioned, and also Showtime City on a Hill. So Pej, really honored to have you on. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's dive in. We saw that you're originally from San Jose. College, I believe, was at San Diego State, and you were in the tennis team, which sounds neat. Tell us a little bit, if you could, about just your earlier days, some of your earlier journeys, and how did you decide that acting might be where you wanted to go?
Well, when I grew up, we immigrated from Iran when I was about 3 months old, and we ended up in San Jose. And I always had a fascination with television and film, and I was obsessed with it when I was a kid, but I just never thought it was a possibility for someone who looked like me to be on television, let alone, the movies or whatever. So I was a pretty good athlete, and my whole goal in life was to retire my parents. I don't, from a young age, I just wanted to help them stop working because they work so hard for us. And I thought tennis was the way. And I got pretty close. I was a Division I tennis player at San Diego State, and then I went on the circuit for a little bit. I hated it so much, and I was just doing it to make them stop working. But I always wanted to be an actor in the back of my mind. And then one day on a dare, a buddy of mine who knew this said, "Hey, why don't we just take this theater class together?" And I'm like, "Oh, really?" And I got really nervous, and I said, "Okay, shoot, let's go." And then I did it, and I literally walked to the tennis court and quit after that.
Wow.
And I lost my scholarship and had to call my dad and say, "Dad, I want to be an actor now."
Oh God, that must have been an awkward? Was that an awkward conversation? Or
surprisingly, I think he knew how much stress I was putting myself under with tennis, and then when he heard the joy in he was like, "What? Okay, but you're getting a real degree. You're not getting a theater degree, So yeah, but he was actually surprisingly supportive. I think it's because he just knew whatever I put my heart into, I worked hard at, and I wouldn't take it lightly. So, but both my parents were from the beginning were just so supportive, especially for immigrants, especially Iranian immigrants. It's such a foreign thing for you to be okay with.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. I have a close friend who I've done a number of projects with creatively, who's an actor, and she is Iranian-American. Her parents came to the Bay Area, I think, in the late 70s. Like I think many folks, from that period.
Oh, we were early 80s, but yeah.
Early 80s, okay. What was your, so they were supportive, but did you find, like you mentioned, I think a minute ago, that you didn't really see much representation, I imagine, growing up, if at all? Like, how did you navigate those early days? I mean, it must have been in some ways just isolating.
It was awful. Just full of angst and doubt. My early days was, no one would sign me. I couldn't get a real agent. I could just get, like, no offense to them, and I'm grateful for them, but like very, tiny agencies who really didn't have any power to get me auditions. Every time I would meet with a real quote unquote agent, they would say, "Oh, we have one of you." I'm like,
Right.
what does that mean? Like, you just have one actor that's Iranian? Like, I don't get it. Or just brown. What it was we have one brown guy already
Wow.
in your age range.
Right.
And you know, at the time you just go, damn it, I was too late. Every time I wouldn't question it. I'd be like, why am I late on this? You know?
Right.
So yeah, the early days were brutal until I decided to, after many agents, the last one that dropped me, I decided to start my own and pitch myself and pretend to be an agent. And I would get the breakdowns every day while I was working. I was selling aircraft parts at the time over the phone, and then look at the breakdowns and then call as Jason Vaughn was the name of the agent. And I would pitch and go, hey, this is Jason Vaughn from Saskill Hill and Associates. And I'm looking at, I got the hot new young actor in town and he's perfect for this project. And I would do it all day while I was working. And then finally I got a movie, and I took that movie and I took the commission from the movie that I got to an agent that was relatively legit and said, here, sign me. Here's some money, sign me. And they said, sure.
Wow.
Here's money and a credit.
Right.
So, and I kept doing it until, you know, where I reached with my, where I'm at now, who I've been with for years. She's amazing. But even her, I told her when, you know, we're really close friends, one of my agents, and I said, you know, you used to tell me no constantly. The whole agency would say no to me.
Wow.
You know, and I don't blame them. You know, it's hard, especially at that high of a level. It's hard to get in with a big agent
Right.
without any credits or whatever. But anyway, so the beginning was brutal, really brutal.
Yeah, you touched on a really important issue. My friend Cal Penn, who's shared a lot about
Love Cal.
his yeah, like who I got to know through the Obama campaigns, and we stayed in touch since. Like he's talked a lot about those early editions for him as just a person, as a brown person, like as a person of color who was assumed to be immediately walking there, assumed to be Indian or you know, like from India, to have, you know, like to get some of his earliest roles, had to do an accent that was extremely offensive. Like was that your, sounds like similar experience in terms
Every audition, the first question, if they didn't say it, I'd say, does he have an accent? Like every time it was almost, oh yeah, sorry. And the thing about it is, you know, of course, like the old man, I play an Afghani freedom fighter in the 80s who was educated in Europe, but is an Afghani. And of course he has an accent, and it makes sense. But sometimes it was just to have an accent, just to have the accent, because God forbid he's an American.
right.
You know,
Right.
like, you know, it's come a long way, excuse me. It's come a long way because, you know, right now, for instance, on Dynasty, I play a guy named Dex Dexter, who is actually an iconic character from the 80s. There's no ethnicity, you know, thing there. Of course, he's Iranian because I'm Iranian. That's fine. Or on City on a Hill, I play an FBI agent from Boston.
Right.
You know, Ramin Malani, of course. I mean, this is where thank God, it's where it's going. And another thing with the accent thing, and I'm sure Cal can speak on it as well, is the problem I have with the accent thing is it's almost expected of us, just because of our skin color or ethnicity, to know how to do it and do it really well.
Right.
You know, I grew up in the Bay Area my whole life. I've never been to Afghanistan.
Right.
You know, so the problem I have with that is the credit we don't get as actors for learning that language, because in The Old Man, I don't speak that language. We phonetically learned it, and we respected the hell out of it because we wanted it to be accurate. And the accent I work so hard on, and it's just expected. And if, you know, a Caucasian actor does a British accent, or a British actor does an American accent terribly,
Right.
usually, they are given awards.
They're celebrated. Yeah.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
You know, so
yeah,
it's frustrating. It's a journey. It's, you know, I know some of Cal's stories because we have a mutual friend, and we were all just going, "Oh my God!" If Cal's dealing with it at that level, when is this going to end? You know.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he's opened up about it in his new book, and it sounds, just as you were telling your story, I think like it's so, and you probably came up maybe around a little bit similar time, but I think it's just striking, to your point, just the amount of work to the actors of color for years have had to do to learn these accents and to do something that was also just deeply offensive and stereotypical, while also having to like sort of, you know, walk backwards in heels and be on a tightrope, right? It's like sort of you have to do more than one thing and be really good at it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Yeah. In terms of the credit piece too, I just want to touch on that briefly, because you mentioned, you know, how important it was to get your first credit. I think a lot of folks maybe outside of the system don't realize that piece of this of Hollywood, right? That sort of there's this credentialing thing that I've seen a lot with, especially underrepresented talent. They have to get this credit, a studio credit. Like, could you talk more about that? Like, why was that important to you? Why was that important, do you think, to your career? And do you still see some of the same dynamics happening in the industry?
Yeah, well, you know, it's a catch-22. You can't do SAG projects unless you're a SAG actor, and you have to get a SAG job to become a SAG actor.
Right.
So that credit is vital. I mean, otherwise you can't work ever. So it is that first credit for me, you know, I'll never forget it. I was one of my other odd jobs, I was selling extended car warranties over the phone. You know? And I got a call from one of those really, you know, not great agents and said, "Hey, you booked it. It's one line on a show called Sleeper Cell, but what it means is you just got into the union and now you're a SAG actor." And it's so vital and such a monumental moment for an actor, that first SAG job, and you're like, oh my God, you know, I could do this, and it's huge. And you have to get the credit, the studio credit, as you say, I think it valid. I don't know how important it is now, but I think kind of validates you, and it makes you feel like you're doing the right thing. And the big guys have said, or big guys and gals have said yes, and okay, let's go, you know. So yeah, it's important. Sometimes you do jobs in the beginning, especially, where, you know, you had to play a terrorist or whatever, you know, and that part of it is, ooh, that turns my stomach, you know. But luckily I got to a point where I didn't have to do that, and I don't poo-poo actors who do it. I hate when actors do that, because they have to pay their rent.
Right.
You know, you gotta work, and I don't judge anyone who does that. I just wish it was less often that's what we were asked to do, you know.
Right. It's sense of, I mean, you're really, the actors are really caught in a system that is perpetuating the stereotypes, right? And perpetuating, like putting them, to your point, in that position to survive and to make
totally And it's funny, it's like, you know, I know Indian actors who get, you know, they get shit on because, oh sorry,
no, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. Who get shit on because they're doing you know, they're a taxi cab driver or a 7-Eleven, or, you know, like a store clerk or something. And these are actual human beings, first of all, if you make them three-dimensional, and it's okay. So you can't judge actors for taking jobs because they have to put food on the table or get their health insurance, or, you know, not everyone gets to be Rami Malek or, you know, Riz Ahmed. It's not fair to judge, you know. Those guys can hopefully bring light and say, hey, it's not just that, there's so much more.
Yeah.
But you know, we can't judge actors for taking work, you know.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I agree with that fully. And the system itself has to change to
Exactly. And it's incumbent on those level actors, and hopefully myself getting there as well, to change that and bring light to it, you know. So
right, and give more agency, more opportunities.
Absolutely.
Get to that. Did you see a shift in terms of, like, when you got some of those first, like, studio bigger credits, like, did you see a shift in the types of roles you were getting offered, or was it more the industry needed to kind of change as well?
Yeah, no, those the auditions, you know, nothing. It's tricky, right? You can't get good auditions unless you have big credits. How do you get big credits? You get big auditions. So for us in this community of brown actors, we didn't have the opportunities like a big series regular role on The Old Man, or these things weren't really that often. In fact, I'll never forget it. I had like one a year, and it was every time I would put so much pressure on myself because I thought, oh my God, this is the only chance I'm gonna have to get a gig. And usually the gig consisted of not the best role. And so I don't think it's much better. I mean, oh my God, it's so much better now. Like for me personally, but for actors in general of our in our ethnicity or our skin color, or culture, it's so much better. It's still nowhere near what it should be. I think we're I read less than 1% of the SAG database is a MENA actor and actresses. So it's a long way to go. We're much better off now. But what happens is the more you work, the better opportunities you get. So right now, my of course now is a lot better than it was for me 10 years ago.
Right.
So yeah, the more you get these credits, the more respect you get, the more the bigger casting people want to see you, the more the producers want to see you, and it's just that's how it works, and that's fine. You have to earn your stripes. Now I'm good with that. I just felt like the opportunities had to get better from the jump
to earn
for these actors, and there are now, but it's still not nowhere near what it should be.
What it should be in terms of equity. Did you have mentors early on? I mean, were there folks that you could go to say, hey, either that looked like you or didn't, but just to say, hey, like, can you, this is what I'm going through.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we had a little group of our crew that we were all auditioning against each other, and we were going through it together. I had personally a guy named Omid Abtahi, who is a brilliant actor, has been on everything under the sun, and he really helped me out. Maz Jobrani was, our North Star as far as an older Iranian actor at the time who broke through. Navid Negoban, who's also a friend of mine and a mentor, as far as he broke. Anthony Azizi. I mean, it was a bunch of guys who were before us that really struggled, and they did it. They opened the doors for us. I actually got to tell one of my idols is Tony Shalhoub, because Tony Shalhoub is a Middle Eastern actor who, I mean, he's done it, and he did it from the get. He was on Wings. I don't know if you remember that show, but he was on the sitcom called Wings, and he wasn't a stereotypical character, and he was so good. I mean, oh my God. And I told him, it was at the Old Man premiere, actually. And I got to tell him, like, you're one of the reasons I thought I could do this.
Wow.
So yeah, I was very lucky in the sense that I had some really good mentors and people to look up to that helped me out, and made it a little easier for us. And the good thing about us, we had a good camaraderie in the brown community of guys. Of course, there were some guys that weren't as open or sweet, but for the most part, we would help each other. Even if we were auditioning against each other, we would tell each other, hey, did you get this audition? Hey, did you get this audition? All the time. Omid and I still do that.
Wow.
And then even, I'll never forget, one of my buddies, Merrick, we were outside an audition. I'd never met this guy, and he asked me how to say something in Farsi, and of course I'm going to help you. We're up for the same part, though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we had some really good people that thankfully that we all came up together. It's nice.
That's really cool. And I want to get to these projects because you have multiple going on. And before I do that, I was curious because you mentioned that things have changed, but there's still the opportunity is still not where it should be. And I wonder if you could just expand a little bit on that to the extent you're willing, in terms of what do you think should continue to shift in terms of that equity piece for you?
Yeah. For me personally, I think that I'm so grateful for The Old Man. The Old Man is the best project I've ever been a part of, and nothing to downgrade any other job, because City on a Hill as well. I mean, Shameless was a game changer for me. Bones changed my life, period.
Yeah.
Like, period. And all the other stuff was great, but this is different for me. Is I felt like for the first time I was a part of a team, and not just like You just sit there and do your lines and we'll tell you when. And they really valued me. They made me feel valuable as an actor, and I want more of that. Personally, and I want it for my colleagues. The other thing is more leads. I mean, people keep saying how it's my time. This is what all my friends say, that oh, you're so lucky, it's your time. What does that mean? That I'm getting a couple more auditions now? Like, that's not fair. Every lead I see is usually Caucasian. You know what I mean? So and that's fine, but it's got to be more equitable. So I would like to see a Middle Eastern, more opportunities in that regard to lead a show, lead a film, And theater is better, much better than TV and film. But that's what I want. I want the opportunity to lead my own show, and films. And superhero films and all the things, all of it. Marvel, bring it on. Why not? That's how I look at it. And I think it's coming. I actually believe it's coming. And that's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I mean, you see some shifts, but it also sounds like, is there also a desire to have more folks behind the camera, showrunners, creators?
Absolutely. And I see it more often now. I'll meet a writer that's Middle Eastern, or I'll a director. I'm so grateful. I'm so excited. Some crew, but it's now nowhere near what it should be and what it will be. But it is getting better, and it's progress. We just need more of it. There's so many good showrunners, and I don't know about showrunners, but there's so many good writers that are Middle Eastern, East Asian, just brown, and the brown culture is coming more and more. And hopefully more execs who have power to give us jobs. That would be nice.
Exactly.
Hopefully some agents as well in big agencies. I just want, it's also a product of our cultures that we weren't allowed by our parents to get into this industry because we weren't doctors or lawyers or engineers. Right. That was the way to go, right? Yeah. This isn't a viable business. Well, actually, it's incredibly lucrative and it's very viable. And now they're seeing it. And I see actors, parents telling my parents, oh, my son wants to try it, and and he wants to get into theater, she wants to get into theater. And that's happening. And now that they see that it is possible, I think that's also going to help. The more these youngsters come in or go to school for it, to become an agent, go to law school and go become an agent instead of being a lawyer, execs at producers and, all that. So I think it's coming. I think it's slow but sure, it'll happen.
Yeah, and you also have this really interesting dynamic with Iran itself. I feel like we have a film festival, and one of the most globally, one of the most common submissions that we get from around the world is from Iran. Actually, we get a lot of filmmakers who say they filmed something, bootstrapped it in Iran. The government doesn't allow it. Obviously, essentially, they sometimes risk their own life to do it. But because of the economic sanctions, they have restrictions on where they can submit, to festivals in terms of paying for things. So there's that dynamic too. And we just had a filmmaker that we interviewed who did a film in Tehran, essentially underground, and made it while he was here because he had to flee the country. So there's that dynamic.
Wow.
Too. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So it's exciting.
What's the film festival called?
It's called the Show for a Change Film Festival. Yeah, so we've been running it for now 4.5 to 5 years with the goal of, and doing it digitally largely with the goal of essentially expanding opportunity for social impact creators.
Beautiful. That's amazing.
Thanks. So yeah, let's talk a little about some of these projects. So you said Bones was really transformative for you. I wanted to start with what came, after that, your series regular, obviously Kevin Bacon on season 3 of Showtime City on a Hill. Can you just tell us a little bit more, folks who haven't seen it, just more about that project? How did it come to you? What was that process?
Oh, I mean, it's just like every other actor. Right now we're all taping self-tapes. I got an audition for this awesome role with Kevin Bacon, and I taped it, and then, I found out later that they loved it and flew to New York and started shooting. It was like a dream because he's one of my favorite actors, and to be in every scene with this guy was a dream come true. And to play an, it's funny. My buddy was telling me, "Hey, what kind of role do you want to play next?" I'm like, "God, I would love to play an FBI agent or something." And then this came about. It's wild. So it's really cool. He's an Iranian. He is a badass. Him and Kevin Bacon. It's just such a dream. I think I don't know if you ever seen it, but the first 2 seasons of that show are excellent. And the third is no slouch. I mean, it's Corbin Burnson, Aldous Hodge, and Jill Hennessy. It's just a plethora of brilliant actors, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I think there's that, what degrees of separation from Kevin Bacon. I guess you're pretty close at this point. Let's talk about The Old Man as well. You have a really pivotal role in the series. I had a chance to check it out. It's got some just great elements to it. It's thrilling. It's engaging. It's got drama. I've just been really enjoying it. Tell us about that. How did that? It sounds like you really enjoyed being on set and working with that team. Tell us a bit more about it, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, the funny part about that show is we shot that 2.5 years ago, and because of COVID and Jeff's illness, we had to stop and then come back in March and finish it up this past March. But that show is just one of those rare things where the writing, the actors, the executives, everybody was so top notch, and it was like lightning in a bottle, and it was different. I've never felt that way, especially from the inception of a show. I've rarely been on, like, Shameless was the first show I was on from the beginning, and that felt similar. Like, what are we doing? This is pretty awesome, kind of thing. Every other job pretty much was me jumping in on a well-oiled machine and trying not to mess it up.
Right.
This was different, where the writing and the story was such a beautiful story, and my bosses were just such collaborative human beings. I can't even tell you. It's insane. Dan Schatz and John Steinberg, just the best guys. I mean, top to bottom, I can't remember everybody, and then I got to work with Bill Heck and Liam Lubani, and just these two actors were just so beautiful. Their work is incredible. So it was just one of those shows, one of those jobs where you're pinching yourself every day going home, how the hell did this happen to me? You know what I mean? So it was pretty cool.
And in terms of, because I think you're touching on something as well, in terms of what types of experiences you're looking for as an actor, as a performer. Could you expand a little bit on that? It sounds like the team is really important, of course, the culture on set. What are things that really stand out to you, whether it's when you first get that audition, or when you get to set, that really make you feel like a part of the team?
Well, the part of the team is definitely from our showrunner, Dan Schatz. Dan immediately made me feel like I am so valued. They're so grateful I was there. I just felt so welcomed. And he did that with everybody, from the guy who had one line to, us. He's just one of these team lead. He is a captain of a ship that I've never seen before like that. And he could run everything and make everyone feel so at home while putting out fires constantly, and fires that we didn't even need to know about. We didn't know. I shouldn't say we didn't need to know about. We didn't know about. Yeah. And that really is just so rare to have. And then on top of that, the writing, John Steinberg is a genius. So when you're an actor and you get to work on those scripts, it's just a joy. It's so fun. It's rare that you're doing a job in a different language, and you're actually learning it pretty fast.
Wow.
Because of the writing. So yeah, that's what I meant by just feeling part of the team, and the collaboration from top to bottom was just insane.
Yeah, that's incredible, and it's a testament to everyone top to bottom. You said who worked on the show.
Yeah.
Tell us a little, if you would, about your process, Hej, in terms of you've talked about how you've done a number of these projects where you've kind of flown in, not flown in, but you kind of, you joined when the ship was already moving.
Sure.
Season 3 to, like, for those who maybe listening to this who are actors or even are curious about this, like, what are those differences in terms of preparation when you're preparing for something where, you're earlier in the journey of the arc of the show versus joining later?
Well, I mean, for me, the differences aren't necessarily the process I go through, because every job, every character I take the same, where, I break it down. I do my work as an actor, and I create a character in my heart, my mind, and I start working on that from the beginning for everybody, for every job. But the difference is when you get to create from the beginning, and especially on The Old Man, I had all the scripts right away. That's so rare. So I got to really go through it and know where this guy's going, where the story's going. On other shows, you do not have that luxury. So you have to do a lot of imagination and, roll with the punches, because things will change. I mean, on Bones, I started that show out as I was supposed to be one episode, a guest star. He was an Iranian immigrant who was a scientist and had a thick accent. And it was funny. It was comical. There was a lot of comedy to him. One day, thank God they kept bringing me back. And then one day, our showrunner, who's also one of my favorite human beings, he retired my dad. I tell him that all the time, and my mom. And he told me, he had an idea. He looked at me one day, because we were doing like some dream sequence where I dropped the accent of the dream, blah, blah, blah. He looks at me, he's like, I got an idea for season 4 or 5. I'm like, what? And I dropped my accent, and the way he did it was so organic. And that's what I mean. You have to be able to go with the punches, because I thought this guy was going here, and then all of a sudden he's going there. So that's what I mean by when you jump into. And also the hardest thing is to already joining a team that's been around and they know each other, and you just want to fit in. It's really hard. Guest star acting is brutal. It's so hard. But it's not. And then getting on a show as a main character as well, it's hard, because you want to be liked, and it's like going to school, a new school every year. It's weird, so for other actors, I would just say, for me, all I can do is do my best, work my hardest, show up on time, know my lines, be pleasant, and just really, I try to instill in other actors, like, God, this is so fun, right? We get to be paid to pretend. Don't forget that when you were waiting tables and you were begging for anything. Now you've got it, and you're worried about your architect isn't doing this at your house, and you're like, what? We're on set. Let's have fun. Like, this is a dream job. So that's my main thing that I take to set. After all the hard work, that's the thing I just it has to happen. You have to have fun. You have to know how grateful you are, and how lucky you are to be there. And a lot of times actors forget that, and that bothers me a lot.
Yeah, I mean, especially given that journey you've had. I mean, it's and your family story, and just I mean, I'm sure you have an appreciation. It sounds like.
Oh yeah, my greatest joy is seeing my father's last name on a screen. I mean, that's incredible. This guy gave up his life with my mom to come here, and his name is on movie screens. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So it's important, and I think. And it never gets old when I see it personally. I absolutely love that part of the credits. When I see the credits, I go, oh, look at that. His son,
What is your parents sound like they're still closely watching what you're doing?
Oh yeah.
What do you think about it now? What you're doing?
Oh my God, they are over the moon. I mean, and to the point where now they're spoiled, right? They go, wait a minute, why weren't you in more scenes? I'm like, Jesus, calm down.
It's not enough.
Yeah. So it's beautiful. I'm so thankful that they love it so much. Their support is, and my family, period, my brother and sister are my biggest fans. Like, my whole family is so over the moon excited every time. Every week they sit there and I've been doing this for 19 years now, and it's as if I just started. It's never not been this way. Bones every week was family night. You know, they would all sit there every episode. Even today, to this day, Bones reruns a lot. And my mom goes, "Is it on today?" I'm like, yeah, mom, it's on at 5 on TNT. Go watch it. Yeah, so it's awesome. I'm grateful, very grateful.
I mean, that's the other side of kind of Hollywood's short-sightedness in some ways too, right? They're not realizing, like, when you give folks opportunities who really like their entire families and groups of people and communities who are like excited, like the appreciation that when you have those chances, you know.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. If you saw what happens in my family, it's nuts. It's nuts, and I love it. I'm so grateful for it, because I think I know a lot of actor friends of mine they don't have that. You know, their families are not as invested in their lives, and it sucks. I feel bad for them, because it is a miracle to make it in this business. Next to a miracle, you know, it's hard, and especially a person of color. So, you know, it never gets old. I literally just told one of my best friends the other day, I go, "Oh man, every time I get on the lot, I look up at the sign and go, wow, this is amazing. You know, it's incredible what I get to do for a living." So I think that's yeah, that'll never get old.
Wow. Yeah, I hope it doesn't. Sounds like it won't. I have one or two last questions for you, which is just around, you talked about wanting to be an FBI agent recently. It was interesting, and you got that part. Are there roles that you would love to have, you know, types of roles or so forth that you'd love to have? Part one. And part two is, like, more broadly, like, do you have a hope, you know, for the industry in terms of where we will go in the next 5, 10, 20 years in terms of these issues of making it more equitable?
Yeah, I really do want to be in a Marvel superhero movie. I want to be a lead in one of those. I dream of that. I think it's important for representation, and I think I would do a really good job in that regard. And as far as that, also, you know, someone I look at, it's hard for me to say specific roles. Someone's career I look at and I really admire, and I hope and pray that that's what I will be able to achieve, is Oscar Isaacs. Oscar Isaacs' career is next to perfect to me.
Incredible.
You know, he gets to do it all, and he does it at a high level, and that's where I want to go. Hopefully I'm laying down the groundwork for that. As far as 5, 10, 15 years, I just hope that we get more opportunities to be the face of something, not just, you know, the guy in the background, you know, be number one on the call sheet and really be the captain of a ship, and thrive in that role, not just do it and goes away and they go, "Told you." You know, that's the problem. The pressure is, give us the opportunity, you better freaking deliver, because if you don't, we're not doing it again.
Right.
And that's not fair. So I hope that they give us more opportunities and let us figure it out, and then see it's great. You know, that's what I hope that's where we go. Just more, you know, lead roles for actors of Middle Eastern descent, and roles that aren't stereotypical, of course, and just three-dimensional and beautifully written and act, and the whole thing. That's what I dream of. And, you know, Oscar Isaacs is doing it. I mean, I think he's half Lebanese.
Guatemalan, I think. Yeah, half Guatemalan.
He's Guatemalan. Okay, yeah.
I think Juilliard.
I did. Yeah, he's Juilliard. Yeah, he is a Juilliard. Yeah, but he's brilliant. The dude is brilliant.
Yeah,
and his career is truly perfect. I don't know. I mean, of course, not all his films are great, but for the most part, it's, wow, this guy's Star Wars, and then he's doing this beautiful work on HBO series, and then doing theater, and then doing comedies, and it's like, wow, is there anything this guy's not getting? You know, it's pretty awesome. I can't imagine he's not fulfilled. If I hear that dude is not happy about his career, I give up, because that's what you hear a lot of. You hear actors that you think are just so fulfilled, and then they're like, no, fuck, dude, I wanted that. I'm like, oh my God. This business can mess with your head, you know. It's wild. So
it really can. Yeah. So on that point, my last question for you is just, like, for folks listening to this who might be earlier on in their careers in the industry, and are underrepresented in some way, like, what would you say to them now? I mean, do you feel, obviously things have changed, you've seen it change, like you said, but someone starting out maybe who is Iranian-American or is of color, like, what would you say to them in terms of the journey?
Oh, I would say tenacity is the key in this business. Tenacity, self-awareness. Don't be delusional. If you don't, if you're not Brad Pitt, you're not Brad Pitt. Okay. But you have a place in this business. And I would say work on your craft more than anything. Be the best actor you can be, because at the end of the day, that's all you got. That's the only thing you can control. You can't control anything else. You can control how hard you work at that. And just, every note, you're going to get a lot of no's, I promise you. But if you can't take it, this isn't for you. So brush yourself off, on to the next. I mean, that's the name of the game, is how you handle the no's.
Yeah.
A buddy of mine who's on City on a Hill, he wrote a book that's called 10,000 No's. And it's so true. Literally, it's 10,000 no's, So be ready for that, bust your ass. If this is what you want, there's no plan B. I don't subscribe to plan Bs. And I know a lot of actors do that. I just think that's you setting up for failure personally.
Yeah, I love that.
So if this is what you want, it's a marathon. Don't rush. Don't compare yourself, because I've done that worst. It's your journey. It's your career. Everyone has a different path.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice, and I hope folks take it to heart. Again, our guest today, Pej Vahdat, did some incredible work lately. Obviously, going back many, many years, it's I think 19 years in the industry. One of the latest series is The Old Man. I hope folks will check it out on Hulu. And really an honor talking to you today, Pej. I hope you. I'm looking forward to seeing you at #1 in the call sheet. And
thank you. From your mouth. I appreciate it.
No worries.
Thank you, bud.